I want Kirblogs. Woo, woo. Moon at Kirblogs. Woo, woo. This question comes from Ryfanger. Join us. But hey, Kirb, I was wondering if you're ever planning to do a Kirblog on Naruto and your experiences with it. I think you mentioned it back in the in the Bleach one, but you never made one. I'd love to hear your thoughts on it, as Naruto is one of my favorite series and also one of my favorite characters. I'd really love to hear any thoughts you had on the subject. I tried to keep that up for as long as I could. I'm so sorry.
You're not. Apologize more. You're not done.
Gomen.
Hey, how do depressed people say, I'm sorry?
How?
In Japan, how do depressed Japanese people say I'm sorry?
No, please. No, I'm very curious on this one.
Gomenasai.
Hi, Scott. Thank you for fucking joining me.
Make sure to cultivate your questions before you idealize. Motivate your answers to make them all realize.
I swear to God, I practiced before, and I thought, no, this is going to be the most hilarious intro ever that won't make everybody close the fucking window out within the first 5 seconds.
I'm not gonna say that I'm holding an open pen up to my throat, but I'm not gonna say that.
Or rather, you're not holding a kunai up to the back of your hand to get the poison out.
Sorry, this is Toonami. We can't share that.
We gotta have the picture of the lunchbox from that one April Fool's joke. Hi, welcome. Anime April is continuing. I'm joined by my
Anime April.
That's what I'm calling it. You didn't get the fucking memo. You have been off the map. I'm sorry.
Oh, see, I don't pay attention enough to your shit.
To idiocy.
So I come back in here and then I see this every time.
Oh my God. Well, I do appreciate you joining. I thought this was relevant because Scott is actually one of the few people I know who continued to watch Naruto for a fair amount of time.
Read Naruto.
Yes. And read and just like knows enough about it. There's actually like very few friends of mine that like have still been. I know that sounds really bad just to kick things off as, oh yeah, good, yeah, because nobody gives a shit about it anymore. It's not what I mean. I apologize. But no, I wanted to bring Scott on because I thought we could have a good, nice, hearty conversation about this whole flame.
To be honest, Naruto is one of those. Unfortunately, it is one of those shonen series that just went on for so long that, of course, some people fell out. They had to at some point.
How many? It's over 10 years by now. How long has it been going for? I think.
Well, the Naruto manga is over.
It's been going. Yeah, it's been done for a while, but like just the series in general.
The Naruto manga, if I am correct, started back in 2000. Oh wait, hold on, no. I believe the series proper started in Shonen Jump back at either the end of 1999 or beginning of 2000. I know the first tankobon was released then. So.
Yeah, that sounds about right though. Okay, cool. Yeah. Well, I guess on that note, first, as I often have been starting these off. Scott, tell us, because actually I think that your point in entry begins before mine, because I'm assuming you were watching it in Japanese. How did you get into Naruto? In the early 2000s, as it were.
Well, back in my day, there was the only way that you could watch anime back then. Was either through DVD releases that usually came out years later. God, it's amazing just how different the landscape of anime is, like, just 5 years from today.
Oh yeah, and it was late we didn't get the show until a very long time, I think, right?
We didn't get the show proper until I believe they were like, I think they hit Shippuden by the time that we were getting Naruto proper. I could be wrong.
No, I think that maybe in the manga, like. The time skip had just happened, but I remember like when the
time skip had happened in the manga by the time we got the first episode of the anime.
Okay.
But yeah.
So yeah, no, elephant in the room. Yeah, fan subs. Like it's no shame. It's fine.
I was pirating my anime when I was 16 years old. I don't apologize for 16-year-old me. Like he is a different person. but yeah, no. I watched it. God help me. That was back in the day where RM files, I think, were still kind of a thing. Real
Actually,
media.
was that also back in the day when? Well, I mean, it might still be for all I know, but was NarutoFan.net, I think, or
Oh.
no, wait, what was the website that was like charging for like fan subs?
Please, like, I'd have used it.
Oh no, not that you would have used it, but I remember that was a thing. That was like a huge like controversy.
It was
back
it was
then.
probably a thing. I wouldn't know personally, but no. Yeah, I watched it. I watched it online. Funny enough, a half Japanese friend of mine got really into it, all because of the Naruto the Naruto Gaara fight. He showed me that fight, and I watched the entire show up until where it was, because I was like,
that'll
oh, well,
do it.
I guess I'm watching this now. The real frustrating part is that I think by the time that I got into it, I think they were up to Gaara. Like, Gaara was a thing at that point. Like, they were up to Gaara versus Naruto. And that's when I joined on. And I was... Man, I could not get enough of it. I was one of those kids. I almost got a headband, but I just missed out on that phase when basically when I found out that most of the people who were getting the headbands were basically being treated as social pariahs. So I was like, well, I really do like the Hidden Leaf Village, but not that much.
No, I think I only ever knew like one person in school who had one of those, and that did not last for very long.
Yeah, those kids who run with their arms dangling at their sides. By the way, kids, don't do that. That's not good posture. It's bad for running.
No, whether you like Naruto or Sonic the Hedgehog, please don't do that.
I want to know who does that because Sonic the Hedgehog.
Or no, actually, even I remember. I think I in my youth of just playing pretend and being an idiot in like school in my youth or whatever. I think I was doing that because of Pokemon, because I think that just like that's a thing with the like aerodynamically, or I guess what would be perceived as such, with the arms outstretched as you run, like, whoa, we gotta get out of here, Pikachu, or something.
Good lord.
So also just backing up real quick, when you say Naruto versus Gaara, do you mean like in the tournament, or like way later with like the big like the demon fight where they had like their big demon familiars or whatever fighting each other too?
Oh my god, it's been a billion years. Were there two fights?
Yeah, well the second one was when like the one tail raccoon thing comes
Oh yeah,
out.
I remember the is it Shukaku?
Yeah.
I remember the One Tails fight. I thought, like, I could have sworn that Gaara versus Naruto didn't have, like, this was, yeah, it had to happen after the tuning exam.
Okay,
Although,
so then it was probably that.
Then again, the tuning exam got totally, like, it started off and then halfway through, like, everyone pulls their shit. So.
Yeah. Well, because the Naruto versus Gaara fight in... Wait, is it Naruto? No, it's Rock Lee versus Gaara.
Yeah,
No,
it's
stupid.
Rock Lee versus Gaara, and then it's Sasuke
sorry.
versus Gaara. I was about to say,
Right.
I'm 99% sure there was not a Naruto versus Gaara fight
Okay.
that fight with the Shukaku.
You are correct. I'm already remembering my ancient material wrong. I'm so sorry.
Daijobu, it's why I'm here.
Oh my god. Welcome to the most weeb episode of Kirblog ever, because we're unironically using Japanese phrases. I'm so sorry.
That was unironically, okay.
Yes. Well, no, see, at least you can, because you can actually kind of speak some Japanese, right?
Chotto demo mo benkyou shite.
Also, was your friend you mentioned earlier, is he the one who lives in Japan, or is that a different one?
So desu yo. Happu desu. He's actually half Japanese, half American, and we're going to Japan in July because...
That's awesome.
Yeah, no, the funny thing is he's been wanting to take me there since I was 18. I actually had a chance to go, but I actually put it off back when I was around 20 because I knew that he really wanted me to go with him. So, yeah, I've been planning this since I was a teenager. I've been learning Japanese, not just certain phrases, not just baka and kusoyaro. I've been actually studying it, the kanji. Oh, not much kanji because kanji is difficult. But I know my hiragana and most of my katakana. Katakana is really difficult for me because I learned hiragana first, and katakana is just not commonly used.
Yeah. Well, not for actual like Japanese stuff.
No.
itself, like-
Katakana is always, or almost always used for other languages. Sometimes for like weird reasons, they'll use katakana for Japanese words.
Yeah, I've noticed that in lyrics. Even sometimes they do that. I don't know why.
Yeah, sometimes. It's really interesting. But yeah, funny enough, one of my funny relating to Naruto, Rokuri is spelt with katakana, and they're all very angular letters because katakana is all like the way that katakana versus hiragana works is that if there are a lot of straight lines and not a whole lot of curves, you're probably looking at katakana used for foreign languages, not Japanese. And Kimimaro is facing off against Rock Lee, and Rock Lee introduces himself like, "I'm Rock Lee." And this is after they fought for a minute, and Kimimaro just responds with, "I see. Your name is as angular as your attacks." Which,
It's awesome.
yeah, and it's I actually love it because funny enough, Rock Lee, the character for Ro, is literally a box. It is like it is a fucking square.
Yeah. No, I know that because of Rokuman when I was watching that for a long time too. I'm curious about how they handled that in the dub, if they had some kind of like equivalent there. Was Naruto like? I mean, if not, you don't have to smoke up my ass.
Actually, I believe in the dub they made something about his name being as fierce or as blunt as his attacks.
Oh, okay. Well, Rock. I mean,
Yeah,
fair enough.
it works.
Or the Lee of the Stone, as Secret of Nim has taught me. Was Naruto? I was gonna say, yeah, that's right. Was that one of the shows that also like feasibly got you into wanting to learn the language as well, or not specifically that one?
Kind of. I mean, I was watching the Japanese version of Dragon Ball unsubbed and subbed when I was a kid.
Oh yeah, on the international channel.
Yeah, on the international channel. I wouldn't necessarily say that Naruto really got me all that much more into it.
Okay.
It did help me to learn some things. I didn't learn like it taught me the basic some basic words like doste, masaka, all that fun stuff that any anime fan basically has picked up over the years. Freaking Kaka and Lanny know Japanese from that stuff. But you know, it didn't exactly fuel the flame all that much. By the time I was into Naruto, I was already pretty into the culture. It really helped that I did have someone who was half Japanese, spent a lot of time in Japan, really cared about it to basically grab me by the ear and say, "No, you don't put an S at the end of Mina, like Mina-san or whatever."
Yo, my Minas, how you doing?
Yo.
Well, the reason I asked is because I'm kind of skipping ahead a little bit. I hadn't even told my origin story with the show yet, but because I do wonder about when the show first came out over here, and even with the manga too. I mean, it doesn't hide the fact that it is a very, very Japanese, cultural kind of series. They're really, aside from translating the names of like techniques or whatever, and even then sometimes they wouldn't. They would keep certain ones the way they were. It made me wonder about if maybe this was a series for people not just in the U.S. but around the world, very interested in Japanese culture, and not that the world of Naruto is exactly how Japan is or whatever. Obviously not, but just different mannerisms or things about the language or food and stuff like that.
Most certainly, Naruto contains a lot of things between from its storytelling to its cultural traditions, a lot, and God knows it's steeped in Japanese folklore. Every single all the big characters are callbacks to ancient Japanese fairy tales and stories and such. Naruto is incredibly Japanese.
Yeah. And it makes me happy that Viz also at the time was, still very smart to not go the route, because they could have, and who knows how it would have turned out, but and many companies, for better or worse, were doing the very Americanized kind of thing. I think with this show, not just because of the fact that it already had a very, very hardcore fan base watching the show, illegally, and also reading the manga too. through Viz. But I think knowing that just inherently it is very much like that, I think that the fact that they had the foresight of, you know what, no, let's not try to hide that too much. Let's really own that, and that ended up, I think, really being one of the reasons why it was so popular, or still is popular to whatever extent, all over the place. Not just Japan, not just the U.S. It's super recognizable everywhere. Actually, okay, so circling back a bit, in tandem with that, did you get introduced to it through the show first, or did you read the manga as well?
Oh, the show first.
Okay.
When I was a kid, I wasn't really all that much into reading manga. In fact, the only reason funny enough, the only thing that got me into reading manga was One Piece.
Huh.
I just I ended up reading a bunch of One Piece one day because I got caught up in the anime, and I was like, well, looks like I gotta read if I want to continue.
Yeah.
It was the best decision I ever made because One Piece anime.
Well, I'm gonna be talking about that on another one soon. I did talk about One Piece once before, but
The One Piece.
The One Piece. Yeah, it's funny because I think that is also the case where, because I can speak for myself on a lot of series where if the show is over, or if I really want to see what's happening right now in the most latest part of the story, is that I'll look up the manga. And thank God, also Viz being very smart to now have everything translated right away, so you can just keep up with it. And I did keep up with Naruto for the manga for a very long time. But that was also because it was my introduction. I remember in middle school when the monthly Shonen Jump American release was coming out. That was one of the series that I was reading actually before One Piece, before I was into One Piece in high school. And I think I want to say I collected the first 10 volumes of the manga. I definitely had everything for the Zabuza arc all collected, and I really enjoyed it. And I love Kishimoto's art is fantastic all the way through. But there's something also maybe it's almost kind of cute because he was still very much learning on the job of doing that first part, but with how different everybody looks in that first storyline.
Actually, if you want my honest opinion, and this is a point that's been debated amongst fans, I am a much bigger fan of his original art style going into it, because somewhere around the time skip that happens, he simplifies his art a lot and tries to make everyone look more mature by doing so. Mm-hmm. But ultimately, I just kind of felt like it lost a lot of its dynamic quality, and after a while, everything just kind of felt like it was blurring a bit together. I don't know.
I do want to talk about that era of the series in general, including that later on, because I think there's probably both have a lot of interesting points about that. But so I was reading the manga, and then the series, I waited for the dub to come out over here. I usually like to do that with most big shows because I prefer to just kind of watch it as it is. And there are some exceptions, like One Piece I watch in English and Japanese. And the Japanese cast for Naruto is fantastic, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
I just wanted to be patient, and I remember I think I watched the first episode in Japanese the night before it aired for the first time on Toonami, and watched it. And you know what? It's funny because still I see a lot of people who kind of rip on it. I actually think that the Naruto dub is very good. It's actually, and because I'll even say this, the dub cast for Naruto, because for those of you who don't know, it's one of the very rare union anime dubs. The cast, whenever they'll have new major characters show up, and because also it's Mary Elizabeth McGlynn, who's the voice director for Wolf's Rain and Cowboy Bebop and tons of awesome stuff. She does that series, and so she'll get a lot of really amazing performers. Sometimes in guest parts and and obviously a lot of people have doubled and tripled up on various characters by this point, but that would be often why I would go to check back in on the series later, was because I wanted to see who else was in it. But sorry, I keep skipping around so much. So yeah, I was following the show. I did collect some of the DVDs, and even though that faded pretty quickly, I think I stopped around right when the tuning exam. I only had maybe the first 2 or 3 box sets. I really do like the Naruto box sets a lot as they were originally coming out, because they came with, I don't know if you've had any of these, Scott, but they came with animatic or storyboard booklets for an episode on one of those sets. and I had those, and I was so awestruck at like how awesome seeing like real boards for an animated show looked, because I think that was my first time like actually getting to see like real production ones before. And I think it was like for one of the Zabuza fight episodes, they had like lots of really cool dynamic shit. That was awesome, and I loved having that. So I definitely have all of the Zabuza arc, which I still have a soft spot for that first big storyline in manga form, and in anime form. I have that collected. And then the rest of it, I was just following it as extensively as I could as it was airing on Cartoon Network and keeping up with it, and lots of great fight scenes and characters being introduced, and by that point I knew enough about the voiceover world that I was like really excited about. Oh, like, who's voicing this character coming up? And I remember still when Kyle announced, I think in like 2007 or something, when he first got Kiba, actually, and a lot of the other characters, etc. On that note, any particular favorite? I mean, I'm sure I know probably who some of them are because there are many universally loved ones. But any particular favorite characters or like arcs or anything like that you really enjoyed?
When I was a kid, I was all about Rock Lee. Well, Rock Lee was like, okay, number one favorite character. Love his attitude. Love his fighting style. I love his story that he's just very bad at ninjutsu, so he focuses all of his time and energy on taijutsu. Like, I always dug that. Meanwhile, I actually always had a soft spot in terms of villains for Kabuto.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I always loved Kabuto because he always came off as kind of like that very non-Naruto villain. Mm-hmm. Like, all the other villains seemed like ridiculously over the top, evil or mysterious, and then you just have fucking this plain-looking Kabuto in the background being all, oh, don't worry about me, I'm just here looking after Orochimaru. And then
I'm just here with my ninja info cards.
Yes, his ninja info cards.
What the heck
and the best
are those? Sorry.
And a fire. But later on, he becomes a bigger villain, and I won't lie. I don't want to spoil too much, but the way he goes out kind of sucks. Not that the actual way he's defeated isn't cool, but by the end of it, Kishimoto, I kind of feel like he wanted to fully commit to it, but then by the end of it was like, we're going to bring him back around.
Well, because Kabuto and Orochimaru, they did get to do some cool stuff later on, but they also really kind of were like, we have other more important villains now. Bye. It was
okay, so can we spoilers on what happens with Orochimaru and Kabuto.
Yeah.
They both basically kind of become not good guys, but not bad guys by the end. But near the end of it, they're like, Kabuto's like, I've seen the error of my ways, and I will now help people. And Orochimaru, I can't even remember what happens to Orochimaru proper by the end. Like, I think he's still alive.
I think he is because, also spoiler, I'm pretty sure that one of the new characters in Boruto is his son.
Yeah, so friggin' Orochimaru is still alive, and apparently, like, I'm just not going to be evil anymore because, like, I just can't be. I can't be that guy. I've already seen that. It's just going to end in misery, so don't mind me.
Yeah. Well, and also, I mean, while we're talking about spoilers, I think it is kind of ironic that Orochimaru is alive and fucking Jiraiya is not.
Isn't that how it works, though?
Yeah, I guess. I mean, did you like Jiraiya, actually?
Another character that, yes, I loved Jiraiya. I felt like Jiraiya was a character too good for Naruto at times.
He had a good beginning, middle, and end. So
yeah, no, Jiraiya is an example of one character who basically always got it right. Not in terms of he was always right, but Kishimoto always wrote him the best that he could. Like,
yeah.
From the very beginning to his very end, I never felt like there was a weak moment with Jiraiya. I can't say the same about a lot of his other characters. But Jiraiya definitely had a fantastic arc that when the end of it felt like a very good end. I just wish that he could have done the same with Tsunade and Orochimaru. Because Orochimaru, I felt like almost had a... You could tell that he was like, Orochimaru is going to be this great big villain. Oh, wait, we've got the Uchihas. So, Orochimaru, bye. Like, he got jobbed super hard.
See, because okay, I because we just did the one about Inuyasha recently, and like I do like Naraku, like for instance, because Orochimaru kind of is the Naraku of Naruto, or at least he was for a time.
Yeah.
And I don't mind that necessarily, because I think that like the Naraku figure, who is like very slothy and like doesn't like to get his hands dirty kind of thing, is and especially one who just like uses everybody to like keep himself like continuing to live on and be young, etc. That's a really cool idea conceptually. I think though with Orochimaru, because in his case, I mean he had like his equivalents of like Naraku's incarnations or whatever. He had like the sound ninja guys and a lot of them and everything, but they didn't really have a whole lot of depth, I guess. They had cool powers, but Kabuto was really the only one of those who had like a whole story to him and got to do cool stuff. I was kind of hoping that Orochimaru, especially by the time they got to the Shippuden stuff, would have like been, especially because of the Akatsuki showing up later and them being like a whole organization of fucking Naraku type characters.
Oh, yeah.
I was kind of hoping that that Orochimaru would take more of like an active role of like really executing his big plan, but I feel like after the big Sasuke and Itachi fight that came up later, he just kind of like fell to the wayside, and he's like, yeah, I mean, I guess I'm here too. And it's like, oh man, like I still remember when you were so cool and mysterious, and now you're just like here. It's like, that's kind of sad.
Well, one of the problems, and this is always a problem with shonen anime and manga, although somehow, God help me, the one mangaka that I know who's done like shonen series, like, okay, two of them, who have just basically been able to introduce a million characters and yet still balance them out to where you don't feel like it's bloated, have been Togashi from Hunter x Hunter, and God help me, Oda Eiichiro.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, One Piece is that show for sure.
There are too many characters in One Piece. Just flat out, there are too many characters. And yet,
I've not seen Hunter x Hunter yet, but I've seen the number of characters.
Yeah, and yet in One Piece, you feel like whatever characters are introduced get their due and then leave until they are further required later. Where in Naruto and in Bleach and in a lot of these other manga, characters are introduced, but then not like that you get just enough of them to start liking them. But then they're put aside for these new characters before the other ones really got their due, and they might come back, they might not, and when they do, they still don't get any real development, and
It doesn't matter that much anyway. Yeah.
Like the worst part is up until the end of up until the part before the time skip, every character is getting these great moments. Even the characters like Kiba still get moments that are really like that define their character, even if they don't really have a lasting impact on the story. However, post the time skip, there's just a million new characters, and all the old ones pre-time skip don't really get any development. Like there's a handful of them, and they all come so infrequently and oddly timed, and
Well, see, it's funny because the catch-22 of that is you'd think with the anime where, hey, we can do all these filler episodes that, develop all these side characters. Like, I feel like in particular, the anime staff fucking loves 1010 because 1010 never got to do anything in the manga at all. Her whole fight scene with Temari didn't even exist. It was a panel. And then in the show, they made it, I mean, it was still only half an episode, but it was a cool fight scene, and she was fun. And they have her, for a lot of filler material, I noticed.
Do you want to know something really cool about that fight, by the way?
What's that?
So, yeah, it was anime only, and the anime came up with the idea that she summoned weapons through the scrolls. Kishimoto was originally going to have it that she hid weapons all over her body. And Kishimoto was like, "Oh no, that's a better idea than what I had." No, yeah, absolutely.
There's a Bardock moment for Toriyama. Well, kind of. No, that's cool. Yeah, I feel like that happens fairly often with where sometimes stuff in the show will influence that. If it's one of the really long ongoing shows, that will happen.
Yeah.
But that said, yeah, dude, little bit of a soft spot for 1010. I know that she's not anything major, but she was just fun.
Another character that I've always positively adored, beginning to end, who had the best arc dedicated just to him. Shikamaru.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Shikamaru, like, oh my god, in the like, it's kind of unfortunate because I understand why they changed it. In the manga, Asuma Sarutobi dies, his teacher, and he's left to mourn and avenge him. And as we all know, Asuma had a smoking problem. And Shikamaru basically picks up a cigarette, lights one, and says, I'm going to smoke until I'm going to smoke these in effigy until I get revenge for Asuma's death. And in maybe one of the most badass scenes in all of Naruto, when he defeats Hidan in a way that is clever and amazing, he takes the cigarette, flicks it, and sets him on fire. And I was like, no, it doesn't set him on fire, it sets off the explosives. And I was like, that was amazing. That was
the Hidan Kakazu fight versus that what the Shikacho team is legendary for a lot of folks I know.
Yeah. It's famous and infamous for one reason or another, because the Hidan stuff is fantastic. Like, I absolutely adored that. But unfortunately in the anime, so in Japan, during this time specifically, they were rolling out new restrictions on their manga and their anime. They've been doing that a long time. Ever since the sarin gas attacks in Tokyo, they've been, like, a lot of standards of Japanese anime from, the 90s to now have changed. You'll notice that there's a bit less violence, less nudity and vulgarity than there used to be.
Yeah, and it's funny because now a lot of these shows that come out, funnily enough, that do have to, back in the day would get censored for various reasons for American television. These days, visually, there's nothing about them that ever really needs to be edited. Like Pokemon, as far as I know, I don't think has been. Not that even back in the day, it didn't really have anything. But shows like Pokemon, like, don't even have to have any of those edits, like, internationally anyway.
Yeah,
I think because of just the softening.
But so one of the big things they cracked down on was smoking.
Yeah.
And you can't exactly introduce a character like you can't introduce him smoking for any reason other than, oh yeah, he's an adult with a bad habit.
Right.
And so for Shikamaru to literally take up smoking and then intentionally say, this is when I'm going to stop, sets a bad precedence towards kids.
Yeah.
And as much as I thought it was badass and amazing, I can understand how they don't necessarily want to do that, like, with their audience. They were gonna feel a little responsible if they basically told their audience, don't worry, you can stop smoking anytime you want.
Yeah. Yeah, see, that's true. See, I hate to sound like a parent, but, like, in fiction, it's like, yeah, that's a very cool, like, piece of his development, and that does work, and I do like that, and is very, like, inventive. But yeah, in terms of, like, protecting the kids or whatever, and especially because that is more realistic as opposed to, like, hey kids, remember, don't go out and do ninja violence, because let's fucking face it, nobody's gonna actually do that.
Yeah.
Well,
like, I'm pretty sure there have been one or two kids who threw knives at each other. I mean, let's be honest, some kids probably thrown a kunai or two.
Okay, well,
But that's personally.
Well, no, because also I should correct myself because I feel like an asshole for saying this. Yes, I do remember there was also the one kid who buried the other one in the sand because of the Gara thing. That was very unfortunate and very sad. I do not mean to. To
be fair, that was one incident.
Yes.
And that comes down to parenting, I personally believe.
Sure, yeah, you could make that argument for sure. Either way, sorry. What I'm saying is, yes, I agree. I do understand why, in some of those cases, like when it goes from manga to anime, not even like like dub edits or whatever, like just in general, I get why sometimes that stuff has to just be kind of changed around a little bit.
Yeah. Also, the another thing the anime did, though, in like on the flip side, was it actually gave an episode, like, before the arc where they fight Kakazu and Hidan, they gave Shikamaru an episode all about his grief and his mourning period. That is one of the best episodes of the show.
Really?
It is flat out one of the most emotional, well-drawn, beautiful atmosphere, beautiful character development, And it's just it's filler. It is a filler episode because there is never a scene where you see the emotional fallout on Shikamaru's side. You only ever see, his path to vengeance.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's amazing. And you can tell that the animators, like, the animation team realized as well just how important and how basically badass Shikamaru was in that season. Like they knew, it's like, okay, this is our big guy for this season. He's gonna decimate the polls, and he did. He decimated those character polls that Shonen Jump likes to.
Oh
do.
yeah, no, he was always in the top 10 for as many times as I see those. For
Yeah.
sure.
By the way, the only reason that freaking what's his face Hitsugaya from Bleach is still alive.
Yeah, well, that and also, wasn't also Irika always on the top 10s in every fucking one of those?
Yes, because Irika Sensei is everyone's dad.
I'm just like, he was barely in the fucking story after a while. I'm just like, you just like him because he's hot. Fuck you guys.
What, Irika?
Yeah.
Is Irika hot to people?
That's not to be shallow, but that's my only assumption as to fucking why.
I assumed it was because he was dad. Like, I thought everyone liked him because he's just dad.
I mean, he was a perfectly fine character. Just the reality was he was barely ever in the fucking series after a while.
Yeah,
that's what I mean. I feel like even in the anime they might have made more use of him from like fillers and stuff than he was in the comic.
Yeah, they definitely used him more in the anime. But remember, the polls were usually for the manga.
Yeah, I don't know. It's whatever. It was fine. I don't always judge off of those because I feel like
I think they're fascinating. Although it tells you exactly why he ended up with Hinata, not Sakura.
Yeah, I mean, well, I don't even know if it's that. Well, that's a
there's a conversation to be had there. Sakura usually did not do great in the polls. Well, actually, I'm not certain about that. Although as far as I know, Hinata always did pretty well.
Yeah, I remember generally seeing her in the top 10. Sakura, I don't often remember being high up, and we'll get to her.
We gotta get to her.
Yeah, well, okay. I want to go to my favorites.
Yes. So, tell me your favorites.
Yes, but that's okay. No, I actually do like all the ones that you had mentioned as well. Another big one, I'm sure that you have a soft spot for this guy, is fucking Choji.
Choji.
Particularly because one of my favorite, because I think it's about 3 episodes. I think each of the Sasuke retrieval team versus the Sound Ninja quartet. I think that each of those fights were like at least 3 episodes each or so.
Yeah.
And the Choji versus oh god, was it I think Jirobo? No, Jirobo's a Bleach character. What the fuck am I talking about? The husky guy with like the weird kind of like ginger mohawk, that character.
Oh, Jirobu.
Was it Jirobo?
It might have been Jirobo. I can't remember any of those characters' names. As much as I love Sasuke in a barrel arc, it's Jirobo.
Yes.
It's Jirobo.
Yes. Okay, cool. I was right. Yeah, I win. But yeah, Choji versus that guy, such a great fight. Such a great point of development. Awesome flashback scenes with his bonding with Shikamaru. Great power-up. The music during that scene, which I think is like, I think that music is kind of legendary for not being on any of the OSTs, but everybody knows it and loves it, like from that particular fight. I just remember when that one aired, like everyone was like, "Oh, dude, fucking Choji, you're my man," kind of thing. So he's fantastic. Rock Lee, yeah, for sure, love him. He was great. Later on, I did kind of find actually, kind of in tandem with each other, Pain, Nagato, and Conan, their backstory kind of interesting because I felt they were a very cool, and plus because they were trained by Jiraiya, if that's right. That team's backstory, especially because of how much of a interesting kind of like, not parallel, but like how much of an opposite experience that they had compared to the Team 7 gang.
Well, yeah, because Nagato, Conan, and
Pain. Or was it? No, what was his? Oh, Yahiko was his real name.
Yeah, Yahiko. The idea was that they were darker time, like basically their darker timeline, Naruto, Sasuke, and Sakura. They're like,
Sakura.
And what if everything just went poorly?
Yeah. You know what's funny too? I remember when Pain's when the body of Pain's name was revealed to be Yahiko. Little fun facts, if anybody gives a shit. When I was a child, and this is also no criticism of the dub casting because the dub cast is fantastic. When I was a kid and I was reading the manga, my headcanon cast for the Team 7 characters were Steve Bloom for Kakashi, which I think everybody was expecting, and then they surprised him with, nope, he's Zabuza, and Dave fucking Wittenberg is Kakashi. Johnny Ambosh as Sasuke, Dorothy Fawn as Sakura because she was the lead girl in like every anime I watched at the time, and Wendy Lee doing Naruto because of her voice for Yahiko on Kenshin back in the day. And then the Naruto equivalent character on that, dark fucking team was named Yahiko. And I was like, oh, how about that? So when I was reading the manga, I was even, I think, hearing Wendy again for him, which was kind of funny. But other favorites, I actually do really think that Naruto himself makes for a fun protagonist. I think that him being the way he is and just like his like idiotic levels of dedication, a little like the way that Luffy and Goku are, but definitely like his own kind of brand of that like lovable naivete and stupidity, but still like giving a shit kind of thing.
Yeah, well, Naruto's a fascinating take on like So me and the friends have this idea of the shonen protagonist types. You have the Yusuke Urameshi type, which is the punk kid.
Yeah.
You have the Goku type, which is the airhead who loves to fight and food. And actually, I think those are basically the two we have for the shonen. Oh, then you have the muscle men. Then you have like
once in a while.
Yeah. Every once in a while you get the like big old muscle dudes, although not so much anymore. Not since Fist of the North Star stopped being shonen and started being seinen.
Well, and also I mean Toriko, but Toriko kind of just
Toriko is like he's more Goku. Like,
is he?
Yeah, well he's a big idiot who loves to eat.
That's true.
And he wears an orange and blue jumpsuit.
That's true. I think just because he looks kind of like a Fist of the North Star, like a JoJo type guy.
He's actually like he's a combination Kenshiro Goku. While I felt like Naruto is a combination Yusuke Goku.
Yeah, and I mean the JoJo series that's shonen technically, and I guess like Inuyasha I found out was shonen. I didn't realize that until way later, but that was and then Inuyasha, Yusuke, and Ichigo, I think, fall into like the punk, like I don't know what you're talking about kind of category for sure.
Although shonen is one of those like it's easy to use the term shonen. A lot of people think that it's got a clear idea of what shonen is, and there's really not. It's just an age group, an age and gender that it's aimed at. That's all, a demographic.
Well, especially because the thing is, a lot of those series end up having like audiences far beyond I think we talked about this in one of the Dragon Ball Kirblog that you and I did too, is that series like that just end up also kind of having a very all ages and all gender kind of appeal to them in some cases because everybody likes action. They often, well, not always, but often I find that they have like pretty well balanced casts of like guy to girl characters and sometimes in between.
Well, and that's one of the brilliant things that shonen has done over the last many years. And by brilliant, I mean it was a clever that they did it. And that was making the characters more attractive to female viewers. And that's not saying that girls only like pretty things, but there is in Japan, their gender roles still very much are a thing in Japan.
Yeah.
Like, by and large, certain characters appeal more to women in Japan than they do to boys. And by giving these characters who just will still appeal to boys via their attitude and their overall their behavior and the way they fight. They appeal a lot to women in the way that they look and a lot of it's very interesting like that. They have done like again Toshiro Hitsugaya from Bleach ranks high in the polls with women every time.
Oh yeah.
And that just shows you that there's a reason that character got as much development as he did. The audience.
And he's also 12, by the way.
Okay, first of all, he's 14.
Oh, pardon me, please.
But yeah, the girls they love him. He got a lot of development. He got a movie all about himself, and that was largely due to a female audience. And if any girls are offended listening to this, thinking that I'm saying that again, all girls just like pretty boys, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that Toshido was aimed at a very certain demographic of young girls, and it worked.
Well, speaking of the polls on the Naruto end of things, I mean, who was always number one? Fucking Sasuke. Always.
Yeah.
Every single time he was number one from all the ones that I saw. Almost every time. All the ones I saw.
Actually, you know who was higher almost every time? Who's at least number one or number two?
Who?
Kakashi.
Oh, of course, yeah. No, actually, you know what's funny is I won't say who they are, but one of my more recent friends, who she was big into Naruto back in the day, she was just like, dude, fucking Kakashi was my shit, man. I'm just like, man, chicks dig Kakashi.
By the way, I've always found it very interesting how people say Kakashi, because in English it's Kakashi, but in Japanese it's Kakashi. And the best part about it is that in Japanese, the way they say it goes by so fast that for a while I thought a nickname for him was Kakai Sensei. Because of how fast they say Kakashi-sensei. Kakashi-sensei.
That's true, yeah.
I found that really interesting. But, yeah, no, like, the top three. And literally, the top three in every single major poll with all the characters. Not like an Akatsuki poll. Not a Konohagakure poll. No.
Just everybody,
in almost every poll, like, Kakashi Hatake and Naruto Uzumaki are in the top three. With I think one where Deidara was really big at the time, and he was in the top three instead.
Oh yeah, yeah, he was big.
Funny enough, Naruto is almost always number one.
Is he?
Yeah,
okay.
No, Naruto was at number one for most of the polls, and if he wasn't number one, he was at least two or three.
Well, just like also, I mean, I think Luffy generally is too in the One Piece polls. Is that right?
Yeah, and you know that makes sense. The series are all about them. Like everyone's tuning in for them by and large.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it's really interesting when you look at the polls. Oh, continue though. I feel like I.
No, that's okay. And I am actually also trying to even think of some of the other ones too.
By the way, I also love Naruto, but I've got some. Okay, let's talk about Naruto, Sasuke, and Sakura at some point as the those three characters specifically in their development, because I think that would be a good centerpiece.
Sure. Well, you know, actually, I think that like, I think I've covered all the other like the side ones. That you know what? Actually, the Nine-Tailed Fox had kind of a cool arc.
Kurama was the best.
He was very cool. I'm trying to think of like some of the other ones like throughout. Yeah, like the Pain, the Yahiko team. I really like Jiraiya for sure. God, yeah, Zabuza and Haku. Actually, I love them. They were both great characters. Didn't really feel the need to bring them back to life, but okay. The zombie ninja.
Let me say this. As much as they didn't need to be brought back to life, that scene all on its own did have some weight to it and did have a very cool ending. I loved the ending to that.
Yeah, I mean there were some interesting things that they did with the various zombie ninja battles. That arc left a little bit of a bad taste in my mouth.
Oh no, it was retread. Right. It was nothing but like the fact that they had team. Oh wait, which was Inoshikacho? Which team were they?
I forget what like number it was. I just know that was
the fact that they had the Inoshikacho fight Asuma was like, oh come on.
Yeah, well that's whatever. I don't want to prattle too much on about that shit, but yeah, I think that those are all the major ones. So, and I do want to talk about the main three. I want to start off with something about Sakura real quick because we were teasing about that. Okay, Sakura, and actually, you know what? I want to say this too because I didn't get to say this about Kagome in the Inuyasha Kirblog I did. Okay, I try to look at especially series like this with their lead girl characters, and I often try to give those characters a little bit of a break in some cases. With Kagome, for instance, a lot of people I knew back in the day absolutely fucking hated Kagome. I just want to finish this thought about Inuyasha real quick. Forgive me, Scott. And my thing was like, okay, look, she's 14. She is thrust into and then chooses to continue going back to help in this thing that she could just, if she wanted, leave and just, you know, continue about her life as normal. She doesn't fucking have to. And she continues to stay and help these people that she gives a shit about, putting herself in danger with no real, like, you know, training, no special powers whatsoever. If anything, I kind of considered Kagome to be a little bit like the Batman of the series. compared to all the other characters on the group. Literally, the other 4 of the main 5 have superpowers. She doesn't, aside from like her spiritual like whatever, but it's very minimal. And she tries. And I'm like, you know what? Looking at that, it's like, yeah, oh, but she's so annoying and blah blah blah. Her and Inuyasha, will they, won't they? Like our fucking episode Infinity thing that we did a long time ago. But I look at that objectively and I say, no, but you know what? Like, she's cool for that, and I respect her. In the case of Sakura, I was seeing a lot of similar criticisms like back in the day before a lot of the later developments happened with her in Shippuden. And my thing that I tried to defend her on was like, okay, yes, even in the case of she's doing something bad, she's doing something dumb in that she has an obsessive crush on Sasuke. Sasuke, especially at that time, is an awful person. And the objective thing that I look at, the fact that I was always kind of clinging to in those kind of cases was, they're 12. They're stupid fucking kids that don't know what they're doing. And I always throw that back at, both guys and girls of, can you tell me that when you were, 12, 14, 15, even 21 for fuck's sake, you didn't at some point maybe have a crush or like a fixation on somebody that wasn't right for you, or that treated you badly, or that, maybe you didn't even know all that much about, but you just thought they were like mysterious and they were attractive to you or whatever. Like, you can't tell me that like at some point in your life, unless you really were just like depraved of any kind of interaction with people, that you didn't have something similar. And, like the scene just before the Sasuke retrieval arc starts, which I love that whole arc, like beginning to end. That scene where she's like, please, like, I'll even go with you. And Sasuke's eventually just like, you need to stop. Like, that scene worked because that was, to me anyway, it worked because it was like that whole thing coming to a head and say, hey, guess what? You're learning now. This is the way it is. And then, once Shippuden comes up, what it seemed like is, okay, she has grown from that. Then, and, feel free to jump in on this, then I went and saw help me, the Road to Ninja movie with the alternate timeline, and now, yeah, now I like that movie. I actually did find it to be interesting. The animation was gorgeous. The story was a very cool kind of idea. I know that Kishimoto was directly involved with that. That movie also cemented to me of like, okay, Sakura, you're insufferable. I cannot fucking.
Okay.
I can't deal.
All right, hold on.
Okay.
So that movie barely even counts to me. Like, Road to Ninja is a filler movie. It's anime only. I don't really care about that.
Fair enough, sure.
I do think that she was not great in that movie by any means. But the big thing for me about Sakura is that she starts off as an uninteresting character. She is not a good character when the series starts. But there are so many shades of possibilities with that character. And as it goes on, you see a shitty little girl turning into a woman. And it's really interesting. And it's okay that she starts off being a little brat. Because
they were all little brats,
they were all little shits in their own little ways. Naruto was obnoxious and idiot, but he tried really hard.
Sasuke was a dickhole, but he had a reason for being a dickhole because of his tragic past.
And he was very good at what he did.
Yeah.
Sakura was very proficient and had a lot of knowledge, and as we would find out, was tough as nails. But the problem is that where Naruto and Sasuke became the centerpiece for the show, she fades into the background. And no one can say she does not, because, yeah, she gets training from Tsunade and becomes incredibly strong. And yeah,
which was cool.
Yeah, that
was cool.
Do not get me wrong. The moment that happened, I was like, oh my god, like, Sakura's back. But mind you, this happens post-time skip. There were hundreds of at least 100. At least 100, maybe even 200 chapters of the manga before that time skip happened.
Yep.
Of her basically being useless. Yeah, she contributes almost nothing to any of the fights outside of small stuff here or there. And the worst example is actually in the Zabuza arc. An arc that, by the way, I absolutely adore. Like, I positively adore that arc. But yeah, Sakura, and this is the reason I'm frustrated, is that every female character in that show barely accounts to anything at all, because it's especially frustrating with Sakura because she's supposed to be the third member of the new Sanin. Like she is supposed to be Tsunade, and then we find out that Tsunade basically is like the least interesting of the three members after everything is said and done. Like,
yeah, I mean, like when she first showed up, she was pretty cool, but then after a while, I mean, but they had her more so in like the fixated role of like I'm the president of this land, more or less.
Yeah,
and she was still cool.
I mean, she's a boss-ass bitch, don't get me wrong, but her actual like her service to the story begins and ends as basically the Hokage.
Yeah.
And so Sakura basically becomes and I'm okay with the whole forlorn love thing. Like I'm okay with her being in love with Sasuke, but the fact is, by the end of it, it's still not properly resolved up until the very end, and even then,
if even,
and there she's still in love with them all the way to the end, and at the very least, at the very, very end, there's a reason. But it is still so... It's kind of gross. Because, I'm totally on board with telling a story about someone being in love with someone who's bad for them. But there's never... Like, Sasuke doesn't really ever pay for that. Neither does... Like, Sakura, there's no fallout. There's no damage. Like,
no, it's almost like they were meant for each other because they're both equally kind of insufferable in that way. maybe that's what the point was. Who knows? I mean, because you think about it, like Naruto, you know, for all his fuck-uppery, you know, he ended up still pretty on top of his shit and accomplished all his dreams. And Hinata, from what I understood, you know, was always pretty on top of her shit as well, and was like, you know, she was good. But
well, the Hinata thing always bothered me too because okay. So she loves Naruto, and that's always a thing.
Sure.
They made a huge deal about that in the Pain arc, where she comes out there swinging her lion fists, going all like, "Bring it, bitch! I'm standing up for my man." And I'm like, "Oh, holy shit! We're getting Hinata, and she's basically left to Naruto." And I'm like, "Holy shit! This is awesome."
Yep.
Well, she gets beaten, and that's okay. She gets in a good hit. I'm like, all right, you know what? That was to be expected. This is the main character's moment. Now, I can't wait to see what development comes of that. There's no development.
Nope.
And,
we get the last Naruto the movie and what even development was.
I had conversations with friends about this who vehemently defend the fact that there is no fallout or development that comes from that scene, and I think it was shit, because it's like, why would you even have her confess her love there if you're just going to basically, like, okay, well, that happened. Like, Naruto never returns to it until literally the movie, after the series is over.
Yeah, and granted, I know that Kishimoto was involved in that one as well, but either way, it's like, really, guys? Like,
yeah, he was involved in both Naruto the last movie and Boruto, which, by the way, good name for the last Naruto movie. Like, just fucking lie to our faces, why don't you?
No, it was the last Naruto the movie, and now it's Boruto the movie. By the way, little side note, I was talking to fucking Shady a couple nights ago, and because he used to watch it back in the day, and I told him about Boruto. He thought I was fucking joking.
I can understand why.
He thought I was fucking.
They were clean out of Bort license plates.
Bort. Christ Almighty.
No, but
well, we've talked about Sakura. I mean, so I was talking earlier about Sasuke being often at the top ranks.
Sasuke's a shitty character. Sasuke is a shitty character. Like, and the worst part is Sasuke starts as a shitty character, suddenly becomes a somewhat fascinating foil to Naruto, and then ends up a shitty character nearly to the end.
Yeah.
And funny enough, it's actually not until the final bit with him where I finally felt like Sasuke had actually become more of his own character. But by that point, I was so sick of him. I'm like, God damn you! Like, I liked his motivation in the end too. I actually really liked the idea of I'm gonna become the villain. Like, legitimately, look how good look how good you people work together when you have someone you're fighting. So I'm gonna be your villain. And I was like, oh wow, that's actually really cool motivation.
Well, yeah, and you know what? That's the other thing too. Is okay. This is on another note from the female character thing. I think of characters who get made fun of so much for being emo, right? But when I saw Sasuke's backstory, like about what happened to his family, and like you get to know him and Itachi as they were growing up, and like his dad and his mom and everything. I thought that worked really well. And when I saw that, I'm like, okay, cool. You know what? I understand now where his character is coming from and why he's very depressed and why he's so fucking like, like that all the time.
I would have been more okay with it if they hadn't written him like. So a lot of, and maybe this is cultural. I can wholly accept that this might be cultural, but the way they wrote him was so like it was stoic to the point of, well, is he really upset or is he just kind of boring? And while there were moments of him exploding and lashing out, it isn't until he's fighting Naruto where he's like, what do you fucking know about me? Don't you fucking act like you know anything about me? And I love that scene. I love that scene because for the first time I felt like, okay, his anger's real.
That's the end of the retrieval arc, right?
Yeah. And I was like, okay, this is what we needed more of. We needed anger, where all we were getting before was just sullen silences and insults. Yeah. And that's just not how human like. And this all comes back to one of the biggest problems with current mangaka and anime writers nowadays is that everyone wants to write anime characters. They don't want to write people. They don't focus on people. They don't focus on actual human characteristics. It's all about what they read or watched in their manga and anime. It's a copy of a copy of a copy.
Yeah. Well, I mean, to be fair, I think that we do still have plenty of like gems that come through the pipe, both in manga and anime.
No, of course we do.
There's always and that's a whole other subject. But there's always going to be shit.
Togashi, if like Mr. Yu Hakusho, Mr. Hunter x Hunter was always fantastic about writing characters who were unique, interesting, had a lot of human characteristics, but were also fantastical, so that you could both identify and idealize them.
Oh fuck yeah, absolutely.
But
I mean, Hiei is like what fucking Sasuke wishes he could be.
Killua is like an amazingly interesting character because they make him likable but damaged, and that's one of the that's another thing. Not Sasuke Uchiha is never really for most men, he's not likable, and women might women and girls might like the brooding bad boy aesthetic, just as someone he's so cool and so damaged. But for a lot of guys, they don't really see that. They kind of just see an asshole.
Yeah, and I mean, granted, I think the same could be said for in a different way, but very shallow. I mean, you and I have talked often about
enough men have gone wild over Hinata, even though her character she's actually got some interesting parts about her, but early on, everyone was like, "Oh, my shy little waifu," and I'm like, "She's got what?"
Oh no, I'm not even I'm not even talking about Naruto. I mean, just in other series with these waifu characters that are just very one-dimensional, and they're designed to be that way.
Yeah, no, and trust me, this goes both ways. There are so many characters dedicated to hitting a male fan base that are vapid and uninteresting and just basically there to insert attributes that you that these men about these want in their imaginary partners.
You know what? Here's something too. This is just coming to me because so in the time since I did the Inuyasha Kirblog, which was the first one I did for Anime April, I went back and watched a bunch of shit right after I was done recording that, and then now I'm actually in the middle of watching Final Act because I became super nostalgic and I wanted to watch it again.
And you finally put that horse down.
Yes. Now here's the thing about that series, and I said this a little bit in that one, but I think it bears repeating here. In Inuyasha, the biggest issue that I think people had is because of the story not fucking going anywhere and everything and anything plot related progressing taking 700 fucking years to go further, right? On the opposite side of that, I think that while that is absolutely true and totally fair for people to feel that way, I think that also the reason that Inuyasha continued to stand the test of time, why it went on for so long and why people loved it so much is because, and this is proven to me as I was watching through the show again, The 5 main characters are incredibly endearing. Those 5 from Inuyasha, specifically those 5, are wonderful characters.
Oh, yeah.
Like I think that they have shit, and people can disagree with me on this, and fair enough. But I think personally that Inuyasha, Kagome, Sango, Miroku, Shippo, even Shippo, yeah, believe it or not, are so much fun, very multifaceted, really iconic, really memorable, and just like seeing them like do fun shit together and having dramatic moments together. It just
Rumiko Takahashi has always been very good at coming up with fantastic characters.
Absolutely, yeah. And now here's the thing. In Naruto, and I think that part of the reason why it continued for so long, and especially with the way that Shippuden progressed, where it got a lot more dark and a lot more serious, is I think that people actually really do like the story of Naruto and the lore and all these different like techniques and like, you know, the mythological stuff about like the different tailed beasts and all that stuff, and, you know, the war that eventually happens and all these big plans with the Akatsuki and everything. I think that was a lot of the big things that people were enjoying. Because for me, for instance, you know, kind of how I was, and I've told you this before, and actually this is a good little plug for the fact that you guys were playing through the most recent video game on the Team 4-Star gaming channel. The Naruto video games were how I was keeping up with the story after a while. I stopped reading the manga, but whenever a new video game would come out, I would watch the cutscenes, which are awesomely animated, like beautifully performed, because the English dub cast is great.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and the games are amazingly made by Bandai as well.
They're pretty good games. Like legitimately, they're the best anime games out right now. Like games based on anime.
Yeah. Amongst them all, really? Would you say that?
Name me some better ones.
Certain DBZ games I really enjoy, but in comparison to any of the Naruto games,
as somebody who actually said, if you're a fan of Dragon Ball, get Xenoverse. I cannot say that it is any better than the current batch of Naruto games.
For sure, yeah.
Like they're better. They play better. They look better. They are just better games. But then again, there's only so much you can ask for a game based on an anime from like the late 80s or like early 90s.
Fair enough. But yeah, sorry, getting off track on that. But yeah, my point is, like, so that's how I was keeping up, and I was interested in where the story was going and what was happening. But here's the thing. Notice that the opposite, while with Inuyasha, the story was what people, you know, were fully, understandably aggravated about, and it was the characters that were keeping them. I do wonder about, do you think that for Naruto, and, you know, if not, feel free to disagree, but do you think that it was more people were interested in the story and not so much the actual characters, especially when it came to the main 3 characters?
It's hard for me to say necessarily what the audience at large wanted from Naruto. I definitely think it was largely a character-based fan base, though, mostly because early on, the story is not incredibly involved, but people fell in love with it because, let's be honest, like the Naruto characters before the time skip, there are a lot of colorful, fascinating characters.
Yeah, for sure.
And I was actually going to say this. One of the biggest problems with shonen nowadays is that they introduce a million different characters and a million different ideas. Like the different tailed beasts, we get to meet the Shukaku, the Ichiobi, the one tail, and his Jinchuriki, and Naruto. We don't really meet any of the others to any big extent, and we don't really find out about their stories to any great extent.
We get to see them all. We get to see every single one of them and all of the Jinchuriki associated with them. Do we actually learn anything about them all that in depth?
In the anime they had some filler stuff.
Okay.
But in the manga, and this is the bigger problem, is that most of them start out slow and deliberate. They're telling you, okay, so this is this character, this is that character, here's their story, here's their development. But then as the bigger and more important, like, overall story starts to become a thing, the mangaka has to make a decision. Do I continue my slow, deliberate pacing where I develop these characters and I explore them to a great extent that makes them have a purpose to be there, or do I push them off to the sideline and focus on the story? And I feel
Right.
like Naruto is a grand example of too many characters that
Too many characters. Too
yeah,
many. Sorry.
too many characters and not enough time to explore them without people growing frustrated that the plot wasn't moving.
And see, here's another quick little thing to pop in on, because I was thinking about this with One Piece and some other series. I think that what is interesting that's happening with a lot of particularly shonen series now is I think that there are some cases where things are being left open for the anime to just to kind of go more in depth with. Like, for instance, something that I loved, and I knew that they were going to do this, and I was very happy with that, is in One Piece when there's a part in the series where Luffy gets separated from all the other Straw Hat pirates, right? And the story is mainly for a while focusing on Luffy, doing some stuff with a lot of other characters, and they do some really interesting things with those arcs for a while. But at a couple different points while that's happening, they have some elsewhere stories about what the other Straw Hats are up to as they've been separated.
Yep.
And in the manga, I think it's one chapter, covers the end of what they've been up to in each of those. I think the beginning and the end of what they've been up to. And then in the anime, they have several episodes of, showing them having their own individual adventures in all these different islands and stuff. And I feel like, and especially now with this trend of the movies too, being like written or directed or designed or whatever by the actual manga authors, I think that in a lot of cases like that, those parts of the story are designed for, okay, anime staff, go to town. You can even come up with some extra fun stuff. I've left some room open for you to be creative, which I think is actually very cool. I like the idea of that. The problem is, I think that, and not if it's even necessarily because of, it being designed that way, to be left open, but I think the problem is when you don't have the right things explored, especially with your main cast, then it's just like, well, what's the point then? I think that of the main three, because, it's the name of the fucking series, Naruto does get the most of that to explore and the most to, the most interesting stuff, here and there, especially with his interactions with everybody else, that, whether it's the main characters or otherwise. So I do like Naruto as a protagonist. I just wish that, in tandem with them, Sakura, Sasuke, and even Kakashi, maybe to a little bit of an extent, got more interesting material and kind of all throughout without them just kind of being so whatever. But at the same time, when I think about the audience reaction too, most of the time when I talk to folks like yourself or, my neighbor Dan, who's a big Naruto fan, he continues to watch the series, and other folks who who just remember the series fondly as they grew up with it. Most of the time, though, when I talk to those people, they talk to me about like, oh, dude, Rock Lee, Jiraiya, Choji, Shikamaru,
Yeah,
etc. All these other
absolutely.
characters who are not the main three.
Yep.
So what does that say?
Well, unfortunately, Naruto, and here, like, I've talked about Sakura, I've talked about Sasuke. Let me touch on Naruto real quick.
Sure.
Naruto is a character that starts off a shitty little brat. But you can also see all the shades of somebody who just wants a family and to be loved, and that is what makes him so fascinating. And the best and the most defining part about him is that he is how do I put it? He's not good at what he does. He's not very good at being a ninja. He's not very good at ninjutsu, genjutsu, taijutsu, and he's not good at working with a team because he's never had a proper family and a proper upbringing. He's just this little punk kid.
He's the epitome of an underdog.
Yes, he is, and they really, and this is something I had another conversation with the same people who are defending the Sasuke, the Hinata Naruto fallout from the confession. They defended this part, and I stand by it. The development of Naruto is really frustrating because, again, up until that bloody time skip, everything is just falling in line with, wow, he's really coming along. He's really learning. He's utilizing all these brilliant ideas, making all those shadow clones and learning that way. Utilizing everyone's got a cheat in that show, except for Sakura, who gets no cheat because why would we care about the development of the female characters? Sasuke's got a cheat because he's an Uchiha and he's got his Sharingan. Naruto's got his cheat because he's got the he's got the Nine Tails chakra, and he utilizes his advantages, and he works them out, and he grows into this great ninja.
He also does, to jump in real quick, because we were also talking about the Jinchuriki, because I like Killer Bee.
Oh yeah. We do meet Killer Bee. Sorry. And Killer Bee is awesome. I love Killer Bee. He's great.
He's great. Absolutely. And also, I don't know much about Yamato, but what I did like in general, what I was implying with that is I do like that Naruto learns from a lot of different masters.
Oh, yeah.
And learns a lot of different things from them.
Yeah, no, from Irika to Jiraiya. No, Irika to Kakashi to Jiraiya to Yamato. He learns,
and Killer Bee.
Killer Bee kind of
teaches a lot of stuff.
It is really great to see him learning from all these different people. He doesn't get anything handed to him. However, and I feel like once he hits a certain point, his underdog status goes out the window, and this is marked at 2 points. It is basically, it starts when the entire village comes to accept him, and that is a huge scene. Like, and I think it's underplayed. He gets what he was going after from the first episode. Yeah, and everyone's like, "Yep, he's our savior. We all love Naruto." And I'm like, "Oh wow, okay, well that's awesome." In fact, one of my friends was even arguing that's when they should have made it a new show. Like, they should have called it something else, like Naruto Ninja Wars.
That could have been interesting.
The Great Shinobi War, because that marks the end of an era for Naruto. But the second part is when we find out his final his real backstory, or we find out who his dad is, who his mom was, and how everything happened. Because let's be honest, we all knew who his dad was. We all just didn't want it to be him because we thought, that's gonna be that's the obvious answer. So
I forgot one, by the way. Fucking Kushina and Minato.
Kushina is awesome.
I love them.
And she got fucked.
I love them. Yeah.
Kuchina was awesome, and I loved her, and then they fucking did exactly what Kishimoto did to all of his other female characters, which was make a male stronger than her, and then basically just, anyway.
Yeah. That's also, by the side note, that's part of also why I kind of enjoyed the Road to Ninja movie, because she got to be hilarious and cute. And
Absolutely.
I love
absolutely. Her. By the way,
carry on.
By the way, if you can tell, I hate shonen writing for female characters because I love good, strong, well-written female characters. They don't even need to be strong like women. They just have to be well-written, and unfortunately, most of these characters are. Some are decently written, but just none of them get any actual development or screen time that makes them worthy of their male counterparts. But anyway,
or if they do, then eventually it stops, and then it's whatever.
Yeah, but my major point, Naruto is the underdog. He is that is the entire point of him, and then we find out that he is the son of the fourth Hokage. Which I was like, okay, that's fine. I mean, I guess that really doesn't have a whole lot to do with his development because his dad was never there. It's still kind of like, oh wow, that's a big kick on, that's a big ups in terms of fate and destiny and all that shit. But whatever, that's not a big deal. Then we find out that he's the reincarnation of one of the sons of the sages of the Six Paths. Yeah. And I'm all like, okay. Shit. Spoiler warning. Okay, if you're listening to this, you've got at this point have the ending of Naruto.
Yeah.
That infuriated me because I was like, you gotta be kidding me. You can't just tell me that he's the underdog and then introduce time and time again. No, he actually had all this stuff going for him. Because Naruto,
it's like super mega ultra special snowflake syndrome.
And it's not even it's not just in terms of whether or not it helped him in the story. It's in terms of the meta. It's in terms of what the viewer sees in terms of destiny and fate and their overall importance and the stake of things. For him to have that happen to him, at the very beginning, it seemed like, no, he's just a kid with a talent. and he's doing his best and making his way through hard work and dedication. But no, he's actually the son of the fourth Hokage and the reincarnation of the son of the Six Paths, and whatever. Like, he's actually
and the holder of the ancient nine-tailed fox. That's like all this shit. It's, okay, that's 3 special snowflake qualities. Guys, come the fuck on.
Yeah,
like,
he's super duper important, and actually, and it's like, guys, he didn't need to be any of that. He could have just been a kid growing up and becoming awesome.
And overcoming opposition.
I mean, at least in Hunter fucking Hunter, they show that even though Gon is the son of Ging freaks, it means nothing. Like, he's really good at one thing, but he grew up doing that one thing. Everything after that is him just getting his ass kicked over and over in the most brutal ways until he gets better. And even then, he still doesn't, like, Gon Freaks loses most of his fights in Hunter x Hunter. That is the best part about that character, is his victories are his own moral victories. They're not against his opponents. Yeah. And that's why, like, you have a character like Naruto who starts off with only winning the moral victories. And then he starts just winning the actual big victories time and time again, and there doesn't seem to be any challenge left. And then it all comes down to his love affair with Sasuke, and by the end of it, you're just so... He's not the same character, and it's not even a development. He's not the same character as he started out as. He just doesn't have the importance and the overall appeal as the original, as he starts out as. Which isn't to say that Naruto by the end of it isn't still likable. I mean, God, I love Naruto. I still really like the character by the end. But what Naruto meant and what he was at the very beginning gets changed and kind of lost as more lineage is bestowed upon him.
Well, I have a question for you, because I think that you also do know a lot more about the meta and the lore and the continuation. Because I tried to watch Shippuden. I waited for Shippuden Stop to come out.
Oh God.
I didn't watch a lot of the year plus of filler that happened when the retrieval arc was finished.
I watched the first 2 arcs and then just pieced the fuck out.
Yeah, so I don't know a whole lot of specific other things that happen in Shippuden, aside from the stuff I saw in the manga and a lot of the video game cutscenes. Yeah. But what I want to ask you about, because as Dragon Ball fans, you and I are familiar with a lot of the fandom bullshit, I'll say, that happens, where it's like, oh, well, Toriyama intended to do this, and then blah, blah, blah happened. It's like, we have no real idea about what fan feedback and what publisher feedback, and et cetera, really weighs into how these stories and how these things get developed in the middle of it. There have
only been a few times where Toriyama has ever flat out said, yeah, my editor said this, so I did that. Like, the infamous part of the stuff with Cell and the androids. That actually exists. That is an actual interview that happened. It's hilarious and fascinating. But yeah, a lot of the rumors about why certain decisions were made in Dragon Ball are just people like, oh, I heard this, or somebody from,
or it seems like this, or whatever. Yeah. Well, it's because why I bring that up is specifically in the case of Naruto, what appears to have been the case is that when Shippuden, or rather when that era of the story started, like in the manga as well, everything seemed like it took a much more serious kind of shift.
Oh, yeah.
And not that the series couldn't get serious before, but it seemed like it had a much healthier mix of still being like, a kid-friendly kind of thing with So, and see, I feel like I'm sounding like it's being dumbed down or whatever. No, because I liked in that early stuff, the lighthearted kind of stuff and the kind of more goofy, moments and things like that, because it helped to break up the dramatic shit. And it was done in a very healthy balance. And I think that's why everybody, even the people who hated the series, who went on to genuinely hate the series, after a while, in the very beginning, they were captivated by this world and these characters and everything for so long.
Go on.
And I think that, after a while, because this happens with a lot of stuff where it's like the idea of a lighthearted, kid-intended kind of series can be dark and cool and like, oh shit, and I want to see what happens with that or whatever. I think that people get almost intoxicated by that thought, and then when it actually becomes that, it's not even what it is anymore. And then whether or not it's actually good, becomes a lot more up for debate.
Well,
so do you?
To be fair, you're talking to a guy who says Dragon Ball is better than Z. Like I've basically always been the guy who's like, sorry, Dragon Ball was better than Z. Like, there were big moments in Dragon Ball Z. You know, the Saiyan arc is actually one of the best arcs of the manga, but pound for pound, the original arcs leading up to where the delineation of Z happens are just better to me. Like, the character developments, the actual fighting, the villains, I always found them much more interesting, and the series itself, the animation, like, I'm going to be completely honest, I don't even care if it was older. The animation for a lot of the older fights just had better choreography and imagination and motion.
You could totally make that argument, yeah.
But I prefer Dragon Ball over Dragon Ball Z. You know, as a mixture of the comedy and the action, the character development. Z, I felt like just basically got too involved in the drama. Like, we need to make the stakes bigger. We need to make it, like, we need to make it more epic, and ultimately I felt like it lost what it was going for. And I love Z. I still love Dragon Ball Z, obviously. I still think, again, a lot of great moments. God knows Super Saiyan 2's transformation, that Kamehameha against Cell, amazing. Like, there's a lot of really good stuff in the Android and Cell arcs, but I do feel like it strays pretty far from what made it so actively, like, captivating and fascinating in the original.
Well, this is a great point, actually, because Naruto would not exist were it not for Dragon Ball, flat out. That is a fact, is that Kishimoto is arguably, maybe more so than any other Shonen Jump artist, he is the most influenced by Dragon Ball. Even more than One Piece, I think. Mainly because of the fact that Naruto and Sasuke reminded me so absolutely much of Goku and Vegeta in that kind of way.
It's impossible, like orange and... Then again, the red and blue / orange purple, that's a common
Sure,
running.
Yeah. But I think in the case of, like, because he's admitted fully as I was a massive fan, I love Toriyama's work, etc., kind of thing. Yeah. But here's the thing. The difference with the Z era of Dragon Ball, of the Dragon Ball story as well. In that case, I think it really was a matter of Toriyama's, like, interests were beginning to shift, and he wanted to go in that kind of tone. And I think that in that point, with all of the Z portion of the story, there still was a fair amount of development. There was a lot of really memorable, iconic battles, that I think are definitely on par with the battles of Dragon Ball. And also, most importantly, kind of what I'm talking about with Naruto is that it could still be fun. There was still a lot of, like, kind of goofball and, like, lighthearted kind of things that would happen, and especially with Goku, in particular. And then by the Majin Buu arc, there was like a much bigger, abundant amount, which I think was a matter of Toriyama wanting to get more back to that, because he's like, okay, the Cell and the Android stuff was very, very serious. Not that I can't still do serious stuff, but let's have some more lighthearted shit in the Buu arc, especially because I was reminded recently in the Great Saiyaman thing, he wasn't even planning on Buu showing up until, like, pretty far into that.
Yeah, actually, in that Toriyama interview, that was fascinating. And they also bring up a great point. I liked all the stuff before Buu showed up, and then after Buu showed up, it was a mixture of this is really good and this is really not great. The really good stuff basically being everything that had to do with stupid, or either Fat Buu or stupid Super Buu. Like, stupid Super Buu is one of my favorite villains, just because, like, I love a villain who is simple but evil. Like, that scene where Piccolo's like, oh, just go kill some humans and then come back up here and then everything will be ready. And he's like, okay, I'll just kill every human.
Everybody, yeah.
And I was like,
at the very least, like, smart Super Buu. There we go. Didn't last for extremely long.
But he is the least interesting villain in the
picture
show.
when you have the more modern shonen series where that is our villain for so fucking long and there's nothing interesting about them. I'm looking at you, Bleach.
Like Frieza was a fascinating villain because he was just so overwhelmingly strong, and
Orochimaru was their Frieza in Naruto, more or less.
Kind of like
completely.
He was basically this larger, like, he was unintimidating looking but vastly powerful because his entire point was like, I have mastered a lot of different jutsu and I know how to use them, and I know how to use them very well.
Yeah.
And he was a fantastic villain, and his voice actress was brilliant.
And his voice actor over here was also brilliant.
Yes, well, yeah, Stephen Bloom. A lot of people don't even know that in the Japanese version, Orochimaru is played by a woman. Like
Oh,
nobody,
yeah, yeah.
nobody. When I was a kid, I blew my mind. It sounds like a dude. It sounds like a deep dude.
That's Kujira. I think her name
Kujira.
is, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
no, she is.
Is she out of curiosity? Is she transgender?
No,
Out of
I
curiosity?
do not believe that she's transgender. I believe her entire thing actually is that she does a lot of Zuka female only theater, and she plays
Okay.
males. Like because the idea is she plays the male characters a lot. Because in that
Okay.
type of theater, which is very big in Japan, where they had segregated theaters, they created their own styles. Like, and while segregation's obviously a bad thing, it also came up. Through those anachronistic viewpoints, birthed some amazing theater, and so but anyway, point being, there's still a lot of really good stuff in Z, don't get me wrong. And hell, even in Shippuden, there's some really good stuff. In fact, personally, the fight between Naruto and Sasuke at the end of the manga is amazing. It is positively exactly what that fight should have been. Only, 200 chapters earlier. It went on too long, introduced too many villains, too many characters, but by the end of it, at least that fight was very good. And the resolution of it was heartbreaking. And
Right.
in the end, I am really happy that they didn't kill Sasuke. Because I suspect that it was going to end in either him or Naruto dying. And I felt like
Or him and Naruto getting together. Let's fucking face it.
you know what? Considering
You know,
the way
that
they
would have
treat
been-
the women in that show, I was like, you know what? Maybe he's just like, maybe the reason he doesn't respond to Hinata is at this point he's already accepted the fact that he wants to just be with Sasuke.
I mean, I'm not being sarcastic. If that ended up, because I feel like I had this kind of conversation on the Kingdom Hearts Kirblog I did a while ago. I swear to God, if that ended up actually being the case, I would have been totally okay with
It
that.
really did kind of honestly feel like Kishimoto was that close, because there were plenty of times where he is okay with dropping some, how do I put this, undertones.
Yeah, well, I mean, Oda has a massive amount of stuff like that in his series that that I would say is much more well done. And I don't know, I feel like, but then again, I mean, I don't know if culturally would shonen series ever even go there? Is that are they like
absolutely not? I mean, ultimately, when it comes down to it, shonen series are based at young men, and while they certainly do not have a problem teasing. Hell, the latest Digimon Tri movies, I swear to God, there's a scene in the bathhouse where it is like, okay, those are some really, those shots are pretty low for these two male characters sitting right next to each other. I was like, wow, guys, so they're certainly trying to cover their audiences, but shonen anime, by and large, will never go the whole way with any of its main characters. It obviously has no problem having some gay side characters, though they don't usually ever say it outright. But
except for when they're Mr. Two Bone Clay.
Unless you're Bone Clay, in which case you are gay as the day is long.
I love him. I love
No,
Bone Clay so
I do
goddamn
too.
much.
You'd think as a gay man I would find Bone Clay to be insulting. I don't. Bone Clay is actually a fantastic character with a lot of depth and is a lot.
'Cause he's the fucking best. He's so great.
At first I could have been offended. I would have been like, oh my God, please do not make this the gay character. But as that goes on, not only does he actually kick some ass, he's actually really resolute and strong, and personally, he's weird and he's a little creepy, but he's also a good friend and colleague and nakama.
He's wonderful. He's wonderful.
Yeah,
I love him. And even
in the scene in Impel Down. Anyway, enough about One Piece.
Welcome to the One Piece Kirblog. I was gonna do that with somebody else, and I've cheated you all. I'm sorry. Okay, so going back to my question that I was trying to ask before. So, okay, do you think that, or do you know if there was any kind of influence on, okay, well, it seems to be going in this direction. Do people like it like this? Is this kind of where they want it to go? Is this where Kishimoto is being forced to go, or where he wanted to go with it? Like, is there any information about like why it kind of took such a shift like that after a while?
Kishimoto did talk a bit about him going toward a darker, more adult place with the manga. He actually has talked about that a little bit. I'm not exactly all caught up on it. It's been a long time since I read interviews with Kishimoto, but he did talk about the fact that he was evolving his art style to fit the darker, more adult tones that the series had been going in, and I think it was his plan from the very beginning to go like to age these characters up and follow them to their natural conclusion, which was no matter what going to get more adult. But I think at some point there was I think by changing the art style, he actually lost some of the appeal. Because, and I'm going to be completely honest about this, and this is my personal opinion. I do think that there is a real value to keeping it a little more lighthearted. Because one of the things I love about Dragon Ball is that it can go to these dark places, that it can go to these, really violent places, but still keep you kind of like, but it's okay. It's fine.
Yeah, like I was saying before.
And not just because there's Dragon Balls. No, it's because even if the conclusions were ultimately like, this is the end all be all, this person is dead, what are they? Basically, I feel like Naruto just got a little bit too serious and too I'm not even going to say adult necessarily. It got too sullen in places, and when it tried to pull back up from time to time, it felt like whiplash. Cuz you had these moments with Sasuke and Itachi in their final fight, and then you contrast that with Killer Bee, who literally is this big rapping Enka singing black guy who is just completely the opposite of every other character. It's shock. It's really weird because it's like, and again, I love Killer Bee. I love actually all of the Village Hidden in the Clouds. They're fantastic. But you have all these I don't know. It did get to that point where I felt like it was having some trouble balancing the depths of darkness and in God, I wish I had the right word for it. Because Killer Bee, again, I liked him a lot too as a character. My assumption is maybe like, okay, I haven't had as much lightheartedness in the thing for a while because I was trying to go this way. Why don't I introduce a character who's maybe a little more, along the way that we used to have things like, like the Guy Sensei type, weirdo sort of personality kind of guys that we used to have a lot more abundantly. And you know what?
And then maybe because it was so jarring because it had been so long since we had something like that at all, it was like, whoa, okay, where did this come from?
I think the reason for that, by the way, is the fact that they had at that point, Naruto and the rest of the gang were almost adults. Like, they were all 16. Like, and at that point, it's hard to, like, when you have kids, you can get zanier, or you can bring it back like, oh, there's the optimism of youth. But the older they were getting and the more serious they were getting, you were kind of like, well, I mean, it's kind of hard to find that optimism when you have these more mature characters on this mature storyline.
And I don't mind. I mean, again, something I loved about Dragon Ball and what I was excited about with Naruto happening, in the beginning when Shippuden was starting, and that part of the manga too, was, I love the idea of growing older with characters and seeing their lives continue to mature. The thing is, though, I feel that Naruto, the series, wasn't maturing. It was just I don't want to say pandering either because I fucking hate that word, but like it felt like it was getting too like
up its own ass.
No, not even that either. It like sullen and stern, I think, is the closest thing that what you were saying before. Were just like it was trying too hard to be mature, and it wasn't coming off like it was maturing. It was just like, look at how dark and cool this is now, or whatever.
Actually, I think one of the best examples of and it still had its good moments. Like and it sounds like I'm bashing Naruto as it went on. Naruto still had a lot of really good moments. Again, I really love that final fight between Naruto and Sasuke. I thought the fight against Kaguya was amazing. Hard to follow. It was hard to follow. But I still found
that's in the most recent video game that you guys did, right?
It's in the most recent video
Cool,
game, and the anime should catch up to it soon. Who knows? But no, one of my favorite parts actually about that is like Kaguya as a final boss is like, oh wow, okay, like you went full on God. Let's do it. Let's go, God attacker. Ramped it all the way up to the top. It was a fucking Final Fantasy villain. But, and God knows, I love Killer B. I love the presence he gave to the series. Even if I did feel like he was at odds with the darker tones that they were going for. But I felt like the series was at its best in terms of its more serious moments and its comedy around the time Yamato was introduced. Mm-hmm. Although Sai is one of those characters that no matter what, like, I saw what they tried to do. But in the end, he just became one of those characters where it's like, well, you were a character who was in this show, I guess. Bye.
At least he didn't last for too long.
Yeah, I know. Sai shows up. He's like, so Sasuke is gone, and you guys need a sullen pretty boy. So I'm just gonna slip right on in here. He did have. I mean, at least he had some funny lines. Like he had some funny interactions with other characters. But the whole I'm emotionally distant because I have no idea how to be a normal human being would have been really fascinating if it weren't this far in the story.
Ben's description of his story sounded kind of interesting in theory. I wonder how much I would actually enjoy it if I saw it in practice. But yeah, I mean, it is what it is, I guess. And I hate that phrase, but. Well, I guess kind of to sort of wrap things up here, and to kind of bring us back to and end on a more positive note, I suppose, because we've been very ranty throughout this whole thing. What is it that you personally think, Scott, is that has allowed Naruto still, even after like the manga's over, Boruto is kind of on its way in, which I, am excited for because I think it might be a nice fresh start for Kishimoto and all the staff that are like, going to be telling a new story and not bound to the chains of, the long overarching thing of the original show. But what is it about the Naruto series as a whole that you think has stood the test of time, and why it is that people enjoy it so much? And why is it that you still have like somewhat of a soft spot for it in general? Like what is it that kept you around?
Again, the characters at the very beginning are really fascinating. Naruto as he grows is very inspirational. Rock Lee is a fun character who gets some amazing fight scenes. You have Jiraiya, who's a fantastic teacher character. Kakashi, who's hilarious and badass. You just have so many characters, and so many, like Shikamaru is the perfect guy to identify as the slacker, yet really good at what he does, but never reaches his full potential until he's forced. There are a lot of characters who could otherwise be seen as cliches who are just so like well handled, and gosh, characters we didn't even talk about like Neji, Kiba, I guess we didn't talk about Ino, but then again, another Kishimoto female character.
She's hot. The end.
Fucking Temari's awesome. Like I also really I love Temari. And I'm just so glad her and Shikamaru. I was like, please, you guys are like the best, please.
Oh my god, that was a funny ship.
I'm so glad. And there are so many good characters, and not to mention that jutsu concept. Like the characters were good. The jutsu, that whole the whole idea of techniques in like that. Oh, that was A+. Like Kishimoto, good job.
Yeah.
You found a way to introduce badass superpowers in a clever manner. Did you know that Naruto was originally supposed to be about, like, I'm not even kidding you, the series was originally supposed to be about magicians.
Huh. Yeah. Like actual like stage magicians?
No, like Harry Potter, or I'm sorry, not magicians, wizards. I don't know why I said magicians. No, they were supposed to be.
Well, it's funny because it is kind of considered like the Harry Potter of anime. I think even Mary Elizabeth McGlynn kind of calls it that.
Yeah, well, there's a reason. Because, and basically Kishimoto, the original pilot manga, is all about Naruto as, he's actually the Fox Spirit, like, in the original pilot. But the Naruto manga concept, like the series, he combined them. He took the Naruto character and then put him into the story about wizards and then just made them all ninja, because it's like, well, this will sell better in Japan.
Oh, for sure. Like, yeah. No, it was very cool.
And it's easier to get away. Like Negima went the way of a wizard school turned shonen as it went on. Funny enough.
Yeah.
And so Naruto was like, well, we're just going to start off as ninjas so we can have our cool action fight scenes and all of our really cool attacks with swords and knives and bombs. And that was a really cool idea. I mean, I've talked a lot about character, but allow me to sit back and say, I love me some action and I love me some really good fight scenes. And if Naruto... And while Naruto has had some shitty animation, it has also had some brilliant fight scenes. Like, amazing stuff. Up in the, like, top tier, like, Studio Pierrot pulling out all the stops for some of this stuff.
Even past like the iconic like real character battles, I still will never forget like Sasuke versus Orochimaru's disguise during the fucking Chunin exams as like the Sound Ninja girl.
Oh.
Shit was gorgeous.
Oh, yeah, and the fight between Naruto and Sasuke's first fight is amazing. And and the fight, and not to mention Sasuke versus Killer Bee is holy crap. Like, give that fight a watch. The animation on display there is positively the best. And not to mention, and this is always going to be a classic, Gaara versus Rock Lee. I mean, it's hard to find a battle in anime that basically sets the precedence of, try and top this. The rest of your show, go ahead.
Pretty much anything with Rock Lee. Any Rock Lee battle is worth checking out.
His Kimimaro fight is amazing, and the fight of Gai Sensei versus Madara is positively off the walls. Unfortunately, animation for that one is not quite as good. But,
can't win them all. Watch the video game. Watch the video game.
Yeah, actually, the video game cutscene nails it.
And watch, actually on that same note, do you want to, because I was going to say, please watch the Team 4-Star playthrough. Do you want to plug anything in particular, Scott, as we're kind of wrapping things up here?
Yeah, sure. We actually did a full playthrough of the story mode for Ultimate Ninja, or Ninja Storm.
The new one.
That Ninja Storm 4. Ultimate Ninja Storm 4. Naruto Hero's, spiritual successor. Which, by the way, like, Naruto Hero... if any of you guys are really big Naruto fans and not heard of Naruto Hero, look up that game on YouTube. The special attacks all have cinematic scenes that will blow your mind. I'm not even kidding. Like, it is basically, like, the creators of the game were all, okay, let's take all of these characters' attacks, and let's see what happens when we can push them to their maximum potential. They become Dragon Ball Z moves, and it's amazing. Like, it's fantastic. So definitely check out Naruto Hero on YouTube. There are like 5 games, and they all have amazing cutscenes.
For sure.
So,
and of course they can follow you on Twitter.
At Kaiser Neko. And if you guys like Dragon Ball Z at all, we have Dragon Ball Z abridged. That's Team 4-Star on YouTube.
Got a certain movie coming up.
I'm working on that. In fact, this stupid podcast distracted me from that. I want everyone to know that. I want everyone to know that your podcast kept World's Strongest from coming out.
Yeah, almost 2 hours. You actually were on just about on par with the length of the fucking Kingdom Hearts Kirblog I did with the Game Explained, folks. So congratulations.
Man, I feel like
Naruto and Kingdom Hearts have been talked this extensively.
We barely scratched the surface.
Oh yeah, just like we barely scratched the surface of Kingdom Hearts.
Oh my god.
Thank you so much for joining me, Scott. The last thing I was going to say, too, to just end my thought, especially on the Harry Potter note, for all the shit that I give the series, for all the, the kind of complaints that we had about it, understandably or otherwise, I am also glad that it got, also kind of like Inuyasha, which I said this before, I'm glad it got the ending that it deserved.
Yeah, absolutely. Even if it's a little bit too much, hey, look, everyone hooked up and had kids.
It's very Harry Potter, and you know what? That's fine. It was a very Harry Potter type of story. It is allowed to have a very Harry Potter type of ending. I'm fine with that. I'm looking forward to what is going to happen with Boruto. I'm looking forward to Kishimoto and the anime staff as well having kind of a fresh start to do some new stuff.
To be fair, I actually really did like the Boruto movie. Even if I felt like there was some stuff that. I felt like the Boruto movie would have been really good, but I felt like there was stuff cut, and I felt like it could have been better paced. But on the other hand, it was a good movie. I don't really care for Boruto, but I do like everybody else. So,
well, I will see the movie eventually at some point. I'm gonna wait till the dub comes out because I'm very curious about that dub cast as who's gonna come out for that. That'll do it. Thank you, everybody. I will catch you all later, and in the comments below, please leave your thoughts, hopes, dreams, experiences, memories, favorite episodes, characters, jutsu, anything you like about Naruto in the comments below. If you have future Kirblog topic suggestions, particularly other anime series to be talking about for Anime April as I continue forward, leave a comment about that too. Otherwise, we will see you on the next one, and thank you again, Scott, for joining, and believe it!
I hate you.
I love you, Kaiser Neko-sama, Sunset Base, Kun!